found an imposter.
She stole my chair.
Hey everyone, my name is Morley, and today we're gonna make this simple modern stool. This is a great beginner woodworking project, especially if you're like me and don't have a lot of space to build large pieces of furniture. I'm really excited to share this one with you, so without further ado, let's get started. I've been thinking a lot recently about making something from spiraling pieces of wood. A few nights ago, I was walking around my apartment and started looking at this 8-foot 1x2 that I had left over from another project. The longer I looked at it, the more I thought it would be great stock for some sort of spiraling shape. So without a real plan in mind, I took it down, set up my camera, and started cutting the 1x2 into 6-inch lengths with my Japanese pole saw. The 8-foot 1x2 gave me 16 6-inch pieces. By splitting these into 2 spiraling stacks, I realized I could make 2 legs that were the perfect height for a stool. So I wasn't totally truthful about the inspiration for this project. Yes, I have been thinking about the spiral staircase aesthetic, but a major impetus for this project was a new tool. I recently picked up an 18-gauge cordless brad nailer, and I have been itching to use it ever since I took it out of the box. A stacked wood project like this was the perfect excuse to take this baby for a spin, and one of the main reasons that I actually dove into this project. But if you don't have a brad nailer, you could definitely assemble the legs using glue-in screws or finish nails. If I were to do this project again, I would just make the spirals a little tighter. That would reduce how much the legs are splayed out, and the whole stool would be a bit more stable. Once the glue was dry, I used a piece of cardboard to figure out how big I wanted to make the top. Penny really enjoyed helping me with this step, especially when I was using the tape measure. I cut the cardboard down until I was happy with the size, which ended up being 16 inches by 8 inches. I tend to think that our neighbors prefer it when I don't cut large pieces of plywood in our apartment. So to cut the piece for the top of the stool, I headed out to my combined lumber storage and mobile workshop, aka Carlos, my 2007 Hyundai Accent. You can accomplish a surprising amount from the back of a hatchback with a couple of sawhorses and a cordless circular saw. The top is made from some really beautiful 3/4-inch Baltic birch plywood. I wanted to get as clean of a cut as possible, so I applied masking tape over the cut line to reduce tear out and used a piece of trim board as a fence. I repeated these steps for the second cut, but swapped out the trim board fence for my 12-inch speed square. Once I had everything cleaned up, I headed back inside to assemble the stool. Attaching the legs to the top of the stool was a bit of a tricky process, but I think this was the best way to go to ensure a strong connection and avoid any exposed screw heads on the top of the stool. I started by applying wood glue to the legs and then added a few drops of CA glue. Then, I sprayed activator onto the bottom of the stool so that the CA glue would immediately hold the legs in place. Finally, I bulked up the connection with a couple of countersunk 1.25-inch wood screws. With this triple threat, I'm pretty confident that these legs aren't going anywhere fast. Before staining the top of the stool, I gave it a quick sanding up to 220 grit, making sure to knock off the sharp corners. I also applied masking tape to the exposed plywood edges. I was a little worried that the thin India ink might bleed to the lower plies around the edges and ruin the super clean border that I was going for. So I did some tests and found out that as long as I didn't oversaturate the top, the India ink stayed within the first ply, and masking tape was enough to protect the edges from spills and drips. India ink is a fantastic, easy way to stain wood black. It doesn't give off any noxious fumes, it dries really quickly, and it's cheap. This 1-quart bottle was only about $17 US. I'll have it linked in the description, along with everything else I used to make this stool. There was a tiny bit of bleeding around the edges, but I was able to clean this up with a little sanding. While the India ink was drying, I added some non-skid rubber feet to the stool. The India ink raised the grain of the Baltic birch plywood, so I sanded this back to smooth with 220 grit sandpaper, which, as you might expect, produced black dust. I removed as much of this as I could, but it gave me the idea that I should probably remask the plywood edges before applying finish to the top, in case any of those black particles got picked up by the finish and dripped onto the clean, beautiful, unstained edges. This proved to be a very good idea. I finished the stool with 3 coats of verithane diamond wood finish in crystal clear semi-gloss. The first coat of finish did turn black from the India ink residue, and you can see here how it almost looks like black paint on the masking tape. But by sanding in between coats and wiping off the dust, the finish was crystal clear once again by the 3rd coat. I love using this diamond wood finish on unstained plywood. It doesn't cause any yellowing, and by sanding with 220 grit between coats, it's easy to get a beautiful uniform semi-gloss finish. And after 3 coats, this stool was done. This was a really fun project that sort of came out of nowhere and developed really organically. I am super happy with how the stool turned out. The contrast between the jet black top, clean plywood edges, and spiraling legs is so cool, and it reminds me of a modern meditation stool. But I think it's safe to say that this is Penny Stool now. It does match her after all. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of my channel for all sorts of other project videos. And if you want to see what I'm up to between videos, be sure to follow me on Instagram. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.